Easy. Easy game. Just get a Sir. There you go. Easy. You just get them. When I run cows, I just get Sir runes. That's what I do. This is going to be the weirdest thing I've ever tried to make actually good and make work. Yeah, I know it's a weird energy to start off with, but it's just that. It's quite frankly the weirdest thing that I've really tried to make work. Since we're trying out all of the different viable poison builds in Season 2, they've made a lot of great changes to poison across the spectrum. We tried to make a multi-shot Venom Assassin. This thing's buck wild. It's absolutely buck wild. It's probably the most energy that I've had to put into getting a character actually be viable, and was a ton of fun. And you'll actually see later on, I was doing a bunch of theory crafting of what you could actually swap out pieces here for on what I think would be the best build. So like stick around at the end after I show you the cows and the good drops and all of that, because it was buck wild. But the basis of the build is having a huge kit to pre-buff with, and then fully swapping into an ED, max pierce, max damage, multi-shot assassin. We are using fanaticism and might aura on a mercenary, but where did it all start? Well, I just wanted to build a Venom Bowasin, right? So how did we start off there? We start off with a Bramble, a Shaco, Venom Grip, and Snake Cord, with a full suite of Shadow Discipline skillers on the bottom. On your swap, you have Shadow Killers, +4s. These all have facets in them. They all have poison facets in them. Our Harlequin's Quest also has a facet in it. You have Bramble with 46% poison damage, 14% poison on Venom Grip. You could have 15%. This is just the best one that I had. And then Snake Cord for an additional 5%. The skill distribution is what makes this build, I think, so interesting. It really is just a vessel to confer benefits to the Widowmaker. So you have Max Cobra Strike for the synergy on Venom, Max Venom. You have Max Burst of Speed so that you get to a really high IAS breakpoint, especially with Fanaticism. You don't have to worry about Shales in the Widowmaker or IAS Jewels in the rest of your gear. You can just use raw damage. You also end up maxing Shadow Master, so you have a bit of a tank. They also help to kind of clear up packs for you, as you'll see in the cow maps. To also be able to fully maximize the damage potential on this build, just enough strength to be able to use this while it bugs itself on, and then literally every other point into dexterity to maximize the total ED on physical damage. So you have just about 6 minutes to do everything that you want to do, because Venom does have a 6-minute timer on it, but that should be more than fast enough to run a map so that all this time pre-buffing isn't wasted. So you go ahead and you cast your Burst of Speed, cast your Venom, you cast your Shadow Master, and then you swap back over, and you're looking at a pretty hefty damage pool, 7,000 to 9,600. Now keep in mind that this is based off of Venom, so a lot of this damage is actually occurring over a 0.4 second period, which at max IAS breakpoint, which is 9 frames, does mean that you're losing a little bit of this damage once you attack again. But since you're attacking so fast and it deals the damage so fast, you're getting a large amount of it. What you end up doing at this point is actually swapping your gear back out, because having the plus to skills and the percentile poison damage is already applied to your original cast of Venom. Now if you were to leave on something like the Bramble, I'll just show you the difference here. If you were to leave on something like the Bramble, you're losing damage, right? So you're losing something like 900 damage from taking off the Bramble, even though the Bramble is 46% poison damage, which does apply to your weapon. You basically double dip. So it applies to the cast of Venom and then applies to the damage that Venom does on your attacks. But since we're actually using full max damage charms down here, we're getting 200 more ED on all of our max damage. So while it looks like we're losing poison damage, that poison damage was going to tick over 0.4 seconds, and we're actually gaining something like 1,000 flat physical damage instead of that. So we swap back out to what the rest of the kit looks like. And the reason why we have to use something like Magna Skin, Giant Skull, and Razor Tail is because with Threads of Chthon, we actually are just over 106% chance to pierce, which is really important on a build like this. Because we are only getting 5 arrows. We need to be able to move the cow groups or whatever you're farming into a line so that your max pierce is hitting as many as possible, and that's why we need to be at 100% pierce. So now with our damage here, we're actually at 5,000 to 8,300, but a lot more of this is physical than it was before. And then in addition to that, we're also using Atmoscarab, which actually procs amp damage a large amount of the time. We have really fast IAS breakpoint, and the first 2 arrows can both apply, so the centermost and then the leftmost arrow are both going to be applying the chance to proc Atmas, so we have amplify damage up the vast majority of the time. Now why is this build so interesting? It's because when we started off, we actually started off on a full max poison damage build. And while the tooltip was showing 9,000 as max damage, I was finding that often I wasn't able to one-shot any groups because about 2,000 of the damage was actually physical. So it was only about 7,000 damage. Then you take into account that they're going to have poison resistance, and it's not enough to one-shot a group. What it ends up being is that if you can get the benefit of 2,000 to 3,000 damage worth of Venom Poison, and then swap fully over to a physical build, your damage output doubles for all intents and purposes. So we went from running something like an 8-9 minute cow map to running a 5 to 6 minute cow map, 7 minutes including going and getting Wirt's leg. I will say this is a much cheaper alternative to something like the Bow Sorceress, who needs a much bigger investment in items to actually make it viable, and actually has even more pre-buff work that they need to put in than we do. Now they're going to be about twice as strong though. This is a very interesting way of playing this game. It's really fun to run around doing multi-shot on an assassin, considering you also have burst of speed, so you're already really, really fast, and then you're attacking really, really fast, everything's getting poisoned and dying, and then you have your Shadow Master randomly casting traps in between and you know, dragon flighting around and attacking stuff. And then you can run an actually decent damage mercenary, who again would be wearing an Andes, so that he has +2 to his might aura. I wouldn't say that this is the most casual build, but if you're looking to do something that you've never tried before and you're trying to mess around with some in-game mechanics that just require a much deeper understanding of how the game works, I would seriously recommend this. It was a ton of fun. And again, if you watch till the end and you see the theory crafting that we were doing, I think there's a way to make this thing pretty ridiculously powerful. It just needs a very, very specific set of gear that we don't currently have available to us. But I hope that you enjoy this. Interesting. Thank you for the hydrate. So we're at 8,300 damage, whereas before we were at what, 9k damage? But that was 70% poison? Alright, so what did we learn? Because that cleared much faster. What up, Senpai? Yeah, so we tried full poison. After getting to full maximum poison damage and all poison damage here and all Shadow Discipline skillers here, I took out the Shadow Discipline skillers. We lost 2,000 damage, but then we regained 1,500 damage in physical. I think if you go really crazy, if you don't want to hold gems here, you CTA, then you pre-buff, then you swap out to your physical build, because CTA is also getting us plus to multi-shot, which is relevant. You get your ED from battle commands, then you pre-buff, then you swap over to your physical set, and then you go. I have 106 Pierce. So if I had a Pierce Slam here, let's call that 15, I could lose these and I could be wearing real gloves. Interesting. Two Throw is a good idea. That's a lot of Deadly Strike. And then instead of Atmas, we could run High Lords. That gives us +1 skills, that gets us an arrow, and that gets us more Deadly Strike. We could actually be pretty close to 100% crit. We get off from these, you could use Soul Drainers. This is the weirdest thing I've ever tried to think about. Can I be honest with you all?